What's up? This is Jake with Hike 734, hiking with my wife Kristen to Bearpaw and Trapper Lakes, as well as spending most of our time along Leigh Lake and doing the loop around String Lake. We started out over at the Leigh Lake trailhead and we worked our way up along String Lake, which is a really long finger, and it was just really pretty this morning, and definitely just really cool. Saw some people taking their sup and their paddle boards and their kayaks and everything. But anyways, it follows right along there. It looks in there. It's really cool. And then from there, we came to the junction where it's the portage for boats for the little tiny stream that connects the two lakes. And regardless of whether you have a boat or not, go up to that portage because it's really cool onto Leigh Lake. It's a really nice overlook, and then follow the trail as it loops along the edge of Leigh Lake. Really pretty. You get it's kind of a filtered view through some trees, but just really pretty. Leigh Lake is so gorgeous. And we just spent a long time following the edge of that lake, and it is just, mostly filtered. It hugs the edge of the shore really nice, and there's a ton of little tiny social trails that just go out to the shore, and you're just getting really amazing looks of like Mount Moran and just a bunch of the lakes, or a bunch of the peaks along that opposite side. So anyways, really pretty, and we just traveled through that. The forest is really it's a nice, pleasant forest. It's nice and airy. It's not really claustrophobic. And so we just looked at all those different views, and just when you think that you're at the end of it, you're not. And then finally we get to this, as you start to get towards the head of it, you can see where a fire has burned. There's along the way, there's some erratics, which are large boulders that were carried by the glaciers, and those are pretty sweet just to think about these big rocks being hauled in by just tons and tons of feet of ice. Anyways, from there, you just kind of parallel this burned area, and then you come out into this big open area as you come to the head of Leigh Lake, and then you come to a junction. If you head left, which we did later on, that takes you to just the north end of Leigh Lake, which was just really pretty. At that junction, I would take the right as well over down to Bearpaw Lake. It gives you the best shoreline access, and that's over by Campsite B. And just follow that all the way to the end, and you just get some really cool views of Bearpaw Lake. It's just this really quaint little lake tucked in there, and some nice grassy shores and boulders in the middle. And we saw a bald eagle and just a bunch of other cool birds there as well. So anyways, we went back up to that junction and followed the trail onward to Trapper Lake. And as we are going through that big meadow, you're just staring at this big avalanche chute off of Mount Moran. And then it kind of wraps around on the opposite shore of Bearpaw Lake that the campsite was on, and goes through the trees there, and then just kind of works its way away from Bearpaw Lake, and you just kind of travel through some more trees, and it starts to open up quite a bit. And then by the time you get to the lake, it's really open, and it's kind of a cool, there's a stream that comes in, and there's a beaver pond there, and then it goes into the lake proper, and then there's like a little marshy section on the other end of it. It's just a really interesting lake. It was definitely not one that we have seen a lot like. And so we sat along this knoll, and we were looking up at the big avalanche chutes and saw this really cool bull elk. And I'm always a big fan of looking up at avalanche chutes because sometimes you get rewarded like this. So anyways, that was really cool. So we turned around and we headed back. Like I said, we swung by that Leigh Lake, the head of Leigh Lake. And then we worked our way all along the shores of the very windy afternoon Leigh Lake, which was nice because it provided some air conditioning as the cooler air blew across the lake onto us. And then from there, when we got to the junction where there's the first portage out of String Lake, which is at the very head of the lake, we crossed over this bridge. And on the other side of it, we took a left, which heads on up to the Paintbrush Canyon Trail, and that just kind of wanders through some trees and then starts gaining some elevation as we went through the trees, and basically this just climbs up to join up with a Paintbrush Canyon Trail. And there's just this really cool little section where you're looking down on a little swamp, and then finally it joins up with a Paintbrush Canyon Trail after gaining a little bit more elevation than you probably thought was going to be there, and then that gradually just is a nice slope out, and it's through some really cool trees, and then opens up into a really cool avalanche chute across Rock Chuck Peak. And that's just really, really sweet as you're just traversing that. It's nice to travel through like just a bunch of aspens, and they must have had a big one here this last year that broke off a lot of the tops of these aspens. And it definitely looks like there's quite a few game trails going through here. And you're looking out over at String Lake, and there was a lot of people there today. And it's definitely a popular lake, and so a lot of people were hanging out there today. And then we just travel through a little wooded section and then back out amongst more avalanche chutes and looking at the lake. And then from there, the trail just kind of goes up and kind of dances in and out through this ridge. But you do have a really cool view looking back at the avalanche chute you just traversed. And then it just kind of bounces out through this little ridge. And the Jenny Lake Trail takes off to the right. And then we went ahead and traveled over by String Lake. And then the trail just follows right along the shoreline of String Lake. Really popular, and some of it's paved. And you're just looking out over String Lake again. And we're just kind of walking it here in the afternoon. But anyways, really cool. There's a bunch of different ways to do this, and as I parse out all my different hikes and stuff, I'll let you know. There's a String Lake loop, there's Leigh Lake and String Lake, there's going to Bearpaw and Trapper Lake, or you can combine everything like we did today. But lots of cool things to see. The lakes are really beautiful and all very unique. So anyways, this is Jake with Hike 734, hiking with my wife Kristen to Leigh, String, Bearpaw, and Trapper Lakes in Grand Teton National Park. Bluebird. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and head on over to hike734.com for more goodness.